So Kate, you've talked about the uncontrollability beliefs, that your worry is out of control and that it's always there, it doesn't stop. One of the ways that we can start to test those uncontrollability beliefs is through something that we call a behavioural experiment. And for this session, I'd like to introduce an experiment that we call postponement. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've talked about how our default way of responding to those initial negative thoughts is generally to push them away or to pull them closer. Postponement's kind of different. Instead of pushing or pulling on those thoughts, postponement is a decision to set those thoughts aside until a later time. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Now, the idea is that when a thought comes up, that we expect that they will pop up. And rather than bringing them closer, paying more attention to them, thinking about them, worrying more about them, or instead of trying to suppress them, block them, the idea behind postponement is that we will notice them and we will set them aside for a different time. So I'm going to describe to you the process of postponement that I would like you to try for the next week as a bit of an experiment to see whether this might give us a little bit more information on the controllability. Is that something that you might be willing to listen more about?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah? Okay. So what I'll be doing is I'll be giving you a little notebook like this, and throughout the day you will notice that thoughts keep popping up in your mind. So in your notebook, I'm going to invite you to write 1 or 2 words briefly for each thought that pops into your mind. So using our interaction right now as an example, it might be that as I'm talking to you, a thought such as maybe I've got a meeting with my boss straight after our session might pop up into my mind. So I'll write down boss meeting and I'll say, yes, I'll see you at a later time. So for me, it might be, let's say 4 o'clock. Now, as we keep talking, it might be that that thought pops up again, especially as we reach the meeting time. And I might think, okay, I've already written you down, so I'll put a tally mentally. Now, as we keep going, inevitably another thought might pop up. So I might start to worry about whether I'm explaining postponement right to you. So there again, I go, okay, I've got this thought, postponement, explanation. I'm going to put you aside and think about you at 4 o'clock. And the idea here is to keep going even if the thought keeps popping up. That you might have to do this 1 time, 10 times, even 100 times throughout the day. However, we do expect these thoughts will pop up, and just because we might be collecting quite a big tally, it doesn't mean that postponement's not working. What we're trying to do is to change how we're relating to those thoughts. How is that sounding to you so far?
Yeah, it's definitely different to what I do normally, yeah.
Yeah, what do you notice that you normally do?
Oh, I'm a bit more, I sound a lot more frantic than that. I'm kind of, trying to push it away, or, I'd be checking if I do have a meeting with my boss, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you've noticed a couple of ways that you might respond. One is that you try and push it away, right? And try and block those thoughts, stop thinking about that. Do you notice the emotion that tends to come along with that?
I get pretty frustrated.
Yeah. So when we tend to feel more anxious or more frustrated, those are some signals that we are pushing those thoughts away. Now, you also mentioned that you might then start to worry more about the meeting with your boss, maybe starting to plan as you're talking, and that's an example of pulling it closer. So again, we want to be looking for signs in which we might be paying more attention to those thoughts. We might even start to catastrophize or worry about the worst case scenario, or as you've described, we might start to plan and prepare ourselves for it. Those are the sorts of things we want to catch ourselves doing and postpone it for a later time. Another thing that you mentioned is, I guess, what we're telling our thoughts when they do pop up. So instead of that suppression kind of attitude of let's push it away, let's stop thinking about it, did you notice anything about the tone that I was using when I talked about putting these thoughts to a later time?
Yeah, you were really just calm.
Yeah.
Really sort of, you just accepted it and you moved on.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of attitude that we're trying to cultivate here, one of acceptance that our thoughts will pop up. And as calmly as we can, just letting them go to 4 o'clock, kind of as a reassurance to ourselves that we will deal with those thoughts later, just not right now. Okay. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Let's say the thoughts popped up for you then. What would your accepting tone kind of sound like? So let's say a thought about a meeting kind of came up. What would you be saying to your thoughts that modelled an accepting tone?
That's okay, I'll think about it later.
Absolutely. So in that kind of gentle, calmer voice, it often models a sense of acceptance as opposed to the more frustrated, oh, stop thinking about it, or I can't believe I'm thinking about you again.
Yeah.
Okay? So one of the things to keep in mind when you're practicing postponement this week is to hold that accepting attitude as best that you can. Okay. Now, one of the things then to just be mindful of as we're practicing postponement is the temptation to try and rationalise those thoughts as they pop up.
Yeah.
So you might try to reassure yourselves, or you might try to challenge your thinking at that point in time. For the purposes of this experiment for the coming week, I'm going to encourage you to also let that one go.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of trying to rationalise those thoughts, which in essence is about paying more attention and giving it more time, for the week, we're going to use postponement, which is really to let it go to a different time where we might think about it more clearly and more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that something you think you might be willing to have a go at?
Yeah, I can give it a try, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Now, I've talked about how we want to respond to those thoughts as they pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to what happens when you do get to this worry time. So the example I gave is we will postpone it to worry time at say 4 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the first step that we need to do then is identify what your worry time is going to be. So I've got a bit of a worksheet here that I'd like you to record your postponement attempts throughout this week. So I'll give this to you. You'll see that at the top there is some space to record the start time and the time limit of your worry time.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally we're not spending longer than 30 minutes. I often say maybe 10 to 20 minutes of worry time. And also we're looking for worry time that's not too close to bedtime, because I wouldn't want you taking your worries close to when it's time to relax and go to sleep. Is there a time in your day, in your regular schedule, that you think you'd be able to keep it up fairly consistently for the next week?
I mean, I'm pretty busy, maybe sort of just after dinner, like sort of 7:30.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do you want to pop that down? And how long would you like to dedicate to your worry time?
I mean, I think I will need at least sort of 20 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
let's put 20 minutes down then. In that last box, you'll see that they ask for a place.
Mm-hmm.
Again, ideally we would be choosing a consistent place. Often it might be at home since it's after dinner. The reason why we choose a consistent place is because we'd like to contain our worrying activity to a specific place in the house, as opposed to doing it on our favourite spot on the couch or doing it in bed where we're trying to relax and get to sleep. So is there a place that tends to be associated with more active thinking, where you can sort of problem solve situations, or where there might not be as much of a sense of relaxation?
Probably in the study.
Okay.
Yeah, where I do my work.
Yeah, so I'll invite you to pop that down. Okay. Now, so what I've got from you is that your worry time is going to be around 7:30 in the evening, and it's going to be for 20 minutes, and that's going to take place in your study. Okay. One of the things that people will find is that activities pop up, so it might be that you've got dinner plans or you've got an assignment to finish. The idea here is not to be very rigid about the time. We can have some flexibility around it. What we want to aim for is a regular practice of worry time throughout the week. So ideally, if you know that you're going to have some dinner plans, you might need to do the worry time just before going to dinner. Are there any questions about that, or any concerns that you might have about being able to do the worry time based on the schedule that you've set for yourself?
No, I think I should be able to make it work.
Yeah, okay. Some people also find it helpful to schedule a pleasant activity or maybe a bit of a reward after their worry time.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you might be interested in case you need a little bit of a mood booster or a little bit of a kind of relaxation activity for after your worry time?
Yeah, I kind of like listening to audiobooks.
Yeah? Okay, that sounds like a great idea as some downtime after worry time. I invite you to write that down as well, just on the side of the page, so that you've got a bit of a prompt if you were ever looking for an activity to do. Okay. Now, I'll also explain a little bit about what you actually do during worry time. So throughout the day, you would have collected a list of different thoughts that popped up and postpone them to your worry time. So in this case, yours would be 7:30. And at 7:30, you're sitting in your study and going through the list for the day. Now, the first step I'm going to invite you to do is cross off all the things that you're no longer worried or concerned about. So they might have been things that resolved themselves. You might have gone to the meeting with the boss and it turned out to be just a casual check-in. So it might be that it's not of concern to you anymore. So I invite you to cross off all the things that you're not concerned about, which leaves a list of things that you might want to or need to worry about, and also a list of things that might actually be actionable. So what you can do in this 20 minutes is you can either go to town and worry about all those things that you might want to or need to worry about, or you can also use that 20 minutes to plan some actions around some of the worries that you identified. So an example might be, maybe on my list, I want to make a doctor's appointment, and maybe I have been putting it off. It might be that at 7:30 I'm going to make a plan. I might hop online to book an appointment online with my doctor, or I might schedule a time tomorrow morning in order to call the medical practice to make an appointment. So I can either worry about it in that time, or I can take some action during that time as well. Is that making sense to you so far?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Now, after the 20 minutes, it might be that some of these worries pop right back up. Yeah. Kate, what do you think that you would be doing in the next week with postponement when these worries pop up after your worry time?
Do I just postpone them again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if something pops up, say at 7:51, it would be to postpone it to worry time for the next day. Yeah, okay. Now, one of the things I'm really curious about now that I've described what this postponement experiment looks like is what you're predicting might happen. So you'll see that on the page there is some space to write down what you're thinking might happen. I saw you kind of took a deep breath as soon as I asked for that. What crosses your mind as to what might go for you in this next week?
Well, I just think I'm going to fill out the whole notebook.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to write that down? There are just going to be so many worries that you'll fill out all the pages in the notebook.
Yeah.
What else do you think might happen?
I think the thoughts are just going to keep on coming back. Like I don't think I'm going to be able to stop myself sort of engaging with them.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll remind you about is that, again, the idea here is not to stop those thoughts or to not experience those thoughts. It's important to remember that the initial thoughts will pop up, and chances are, if they are something that is causing us a bit of stress or something that pops up regularly for us, that we will expect that it will pop up time and time again. So remember, a measure of whether postponement is working is not about whether the thought pops back up again and again. It's more about whether we're able to notice it and let it go instead of falling into that push or pull pattern. What do you think about your ability? What are you predicting about your ability to be able to postpone those thoughts instead of engaging in that pushing and pulling?
I think I might be able to do it with some of them, but maybe not with others.
Okay, have you got some ideas about which ones you'd feel less confident about postponing?
Probably the really important ones, like ones to do with like work or study or my partner. I think they're going to be harder.
Okay, I'll invite you to write that prediction down then, that you'll be able to postpone some, but not all of the worries, especially the ones that you deem as quite important, like about study or about relationships. Are there any expectations or predictions that you have about the worry time itself?
I think it might be hard to stop after the 20 minutes. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be enough time to get through all of my worries.
Okay, do you want to write that down as another prediction? I can really hear that uncontrollability belief kind of firing up there. Yeah. That will be really difficult to stop yourself in that time. considering all of those predictions then and what I've invited you to have a go at this coming week, the next line is a chance for us to kind of check in about how confident you feel about your ability to postpone. So you'll see a rating scale on that page from 0 to 10, 0 being you're not confident at all, and 10 being that you're really confident you'll be able to postpone all the thoughts that come through your mind. Where would you say that you are at in your level of confidence right now about postponement?
Maybe 5.
Okay, so somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Yep. So what's contributing to it being a 5 rather than say a 0?
I mean, I've never tried it before, so I just don't really know.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like there's going to be opportunities then for us to collect some evidence in the next week as to your ability to postpone and what happens when you can postpone it. Yeah. That's where the second half of the page gives us some space to record what you observe. So there'll be space to note down what happens when you are able to postpone, or if you aren't able to postpone. You can put all your observations down there for each day that you're practicing it, and also what you notice happening during worry time. We'll then come back at next session to summarise some of the conclusions that you gained from this experiment. At this point in time, Kate, have you got any questions or concerns about the postponement experiment that we've set up?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. I really appreciate that you're very willing to give this a go. If you notice that any questions come up, I have prepared a handout for you just underneath that worksheet, and that will serve as a reminder if you've got any questions about the process. Okay.